Welcome. This is Advertising Week Asia. I'm Christian Schmitz. I'm the founder of the Purpose-Driven Innovation Ecosystem. We are co-creating a better tomorrow by finding and scaling the most impactful and sustainable innovations. And for doing this, we're building an international global ecosystem of change makers, entrepreneurs, investors, and also try to have an influence at government. And especially today, I would like to mention the Earthshot Prize, because PDIE Group is an official nominator of the Earthshot Prize. This is an initiative by Prince William and Sir David Attenborough to save the planet by innovation. It's a 10 years initiative, and we are looking for game-changing initiatives to fix the problems on the planet. Today, our discussion, can marketing save the planet? I have to admit, it's a provocative question, and we have fascinating and amazing panelists today who can well contribute to this topic. So without further ado, I would like to ask each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves. And I would like to ask Sergio Fernandez de Cordova for the initial self-introduction.
Thank you so much, Christian. Very excited to be here today. My name is Sergio Fernandez de Cordova, and I am calling in from New York City. And I'm the chairman of the Public Foundation. Public Foundation focuses on how we use media, data, and technology to build a better world. And we've been come from the advertising world by basically last 30 years. So excited to be here and share with this great panel. Thank you, Christian.
Thanks very much. And we have Rick Grehan. So please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, Christian. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Rick Grehan. I'm from Belfast, Northern Ireland, but based in Tokyo, Japan. I've been here over 15 years and founded the sustainable branding agency called ImageMill. And yeah, very happy to be on the chat today.
And then last but not least, we have one of these young entrepreneurs who try to change the paradigm and are working on wonderful initiatives. So Ian Shimizu, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Christian. Thank you so much for having me. As you can see, I'm in the middle of the forest today, broadcasting straight from the Amazon rainforest, which is not true. I'm actually in Mexico right now. I'm from Japan, and I'm the founder of an initiative called We Mori. And our mission is to reverse the climate and extinction crisis by creating a global movement that protects and restores forests. And we're a nonprofit, and our pillar project is an app by the same name. It's called We Mori. And what you can do with the app is protect and restore forests with your fingertips. Just with 2 taps, you can actually protect and restore forests like the one you see behind me. So that's the project that we're doing. And I'm super excited for today's conversation because marketing is so key in succeeding in anything, including my own project.
Fantastic. Then I would like to go to our topic and would start with another provocative question. Do you think climate change is a global emergency? If so, what is the role of the creative and marketing community to help be part of the solution? And I'm asking this question to Sergio.
Thank you so much, Christian. And, do I think climate change is a global emergency? I think that the pandemic has pretty much told us it is, right? We've seen more of Mother Nature come back, more amazing, the video that Edinburgh did, which was, really showed how the animals were taking over the streets, right? And what does that tell us? That, that they don't need us, right? That they, that the emergency here is that we are the problem, right? So then what is the role of the creative and marketing community, and how can we be part of that solution rather than be part of the problem? And I think that, me as someone that is in social impact and comes from the advertising and media world, I think that, what's been exciting is that Mother Nature has spoken to us. And I think that what we are seeing now is that, the role that marketers are starting to play is folks are starting to have a level of empathy, a level of how they communicate with everyone around the issue that, yes, we are in a pandemic, but there's a bigger issue at hand, which is the climate global emergency. And what are we doing about it? Because we're coming out of a pandemic and we're going to go back to normality. So we need to now have a level of, a level of conscious, right, and empathy again for Mother Earth. And I think that's where the marketing and creative community could play a very important role, because it's how we're communicating people, how we're telling them, everyone is looking for leadership right now, especially in a post-pandemic era. Leadership is key. Brands play an important role. Marketing agencies in building that message play an important role. The creatives of how we communicate those messages play an important role. So I think it's an everyone in the sort of, advertising, marketing, and brands play a very important role. And I think that, part of the solution, to conclude on my point here, part of the solution is better messaging, right? Messaging that, uplifts people to take action, right? Messaging, the power of their budgets can be used to communicate, and reinforce how we can make a better planet in many ways. And whatever that way the brand can embrace, that's what the marketer should promote.
Fantastic. And we have such kind of marketer here, coming from a history of being a peace activist in Belfast and being based in Japan right now with ImageMill. It's Rick. Yeah, please let us know about the second question. How can marketers and brands come together to change the rhetoric of yesterday and bring awareness to the solutions needed to save our planet?
Big question, Rick.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks for that tough one. Anyway, I come from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I kind of explained a bit earlier that growing, I was a peace activist, and my family are very involved in activism, and so I grew up traditional activism, trying to make change, and then I joined advertising, and I kind of felt like I had to kind of give up my own purpose. So it was kind of interesting because in my private life, I was often boycotting different brands, etc. And then I found that actually in my daytime job, I was helping develop brand strategies for the same company. And I just thought that was shogunai, as they say in Japan, c'est la vie. You have to earn a living, and what you do in your personal life is how you make change. So fast forward to now, and things have really changed. And people now expect brands and from that they have to have a purpose. They have to align with their own purpose as well. So there's a big opportunity for brands now to figure out what those big change making activities are and align with them and get behind them. And as long as it aligns with their brand strategy and with the company as a whole, then it's a win-win situation. Otherwise, there's big dangers of greenwashing. A lot of brands jumping on the bandwagon, and often it's from good intentions. I've been doing greenwashing in my previous history because we just think putting a good message out is good enough, but actually, unless the brand's backing that up internally, it's whether it's intentional or not, it's damaging for the brand. You're over-promising. You can be exposed. There's great organizations out there like Greenpeace or other independent companies that are monitoring companies and checking their progress and figuring out if what they are saying matches what they are doing. So it's come to a stage now where we really can't rely on governments. As Sergio kind of mentioned there, that we're really heading towards a tipping point here, environmentally, socially. Around the world we see political situations, social demise, there's unrest, the old models just aren't working. We got to kind of, I think with marketing, with branding, we got to align with these big trends and help solve them. Governments, they're a little bit slow, and they've got too many different interests to really maneuver like a company can. So I think with brands and marketing, we can really make these big changes, and I love NGOs. We really need them. They really point out an issue. They really, they're very passionate people. We really need them, but they kind of usually always don't have the financial backing to make these big changes. So, what we do as ImageMill, we help align brands with good causes, NGOs, and then, create stories between them. So that's kind of like CSR. CSR is brands literally just donating to a good cause. But I think, that's an outdated model. What we need to do is now create, social business models that actually, by doing business, are giving back to society or addressing environmental issues. So I think that's the next stage, as an advertiser, and as I said, in the past, I was doing greenwashing because all I know is about telling great stories, but I found more and more I had to consult with the company and try to go back into their, even their supply chains and help them to kind of analyze what they're doing so they can come up with some purpose that aligns with their business. And then we make the stories. Because
taking this keyword, let me jump in.
Yeah.
I mean, purpose is exactly what we are all about with a purpose-driven innovation ecosystem. And you also mentioned NPOs and NGOs. And we have a young entrepreneur who's also representing the younger generation, Ian Shimizu here. And I would like to address the question to him: what can a startup entrepreneur with a bold global vision do to build a new global movement? And what kind of role would marketing play for you?
I think, generally speaking, it's always going to be two things. One is diligent work every single day, day in and day out. You never give up. You keep going. You just continue at it. And that's not flashy. That's the dirt work. It's the it's the grind, the everyday work that you do, while you're also always looking out for the earth shot or the moon shot or whatever you want to call it, which are usually brought on through collaborations in creative ways, including with, let's say, a marketing agency. So I think it's always a combination of the two, really always, leaving that 5 to 10% of your capacity to land the big, really exciting things, while always also keeping up with the grind, keeping up with the everyday work. And I think when people, speak of big visions, they think they're achieved by big steps, but I think they're achieved by a compounding of small steps. So always bearing that in mind, but always also leaving the space to think, what's something really cool that I can do? What's something really exciting that I could do with X partner or Y partner, wherever that may be. And in terms of how marketing fits into this, so one of the most important roles, I think, of a nonprofit in our world is leading in creating new narratives, in creating new stories, in pulling the world in a certain direction, and doing so with the utmost purity. And by being pure, inspiring many, 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 many. I used to work for a nonprofit called 350. And since 2009, they've been saying the same thing. They've been saying, keep the fossil fuels in the ground and let's create a 100% renewable society. Everybody thought they were crazy at the time. Fast forward 2018, we have Greta Thunberg saying exactly the same thing. Keep the fossil fuels in the ground and 100% renewable energy. Now, that's what I think is the power of a nonprofit, is that you have the power to lead the conversation at the most highest level in the most profound of ways. Now, marketing comes in the ability to do that effectively and efficiently, because the way that I've seen it through my journey as a nonprofit entrepreneur is that marketing is a science. It's an art and it's a science. It's about understanding the numbers, and then after understanding those numbers, also being creative enough to craft a new narrative. And I think that's incredible work. And if that knowledge can be harnessed towards the purity that nonprofits are pursuing within their messaging, really, like that is the marriage that we need. That is the marriage that we need, in my opinion, because we have the passion. We want to tell it. And there are people out there who know how to tell it better. So if those two things can come together, it has an explosive potential. So yeah, I'm learning so much from this conversation today. And yeah, this is the kind of stuff that we need more of, in my opinion.
Fantastic. And I think when you say purity, you also link a little bit to what could be something like truth. And truth is also deep in our consciousness. We basically know what's right. So I would like to, I have designed a great question for Rick again, because he's a storyteller. And how can we change the same old stories from advertisers to be more purpose-driven? And how can we utilize the power of storytelling? Maybe you can give even a few examples from your work.
I always say, have a phrase as, why buy media when you can create it? I think, companies like Tesla are kind of masters at this. And in fact, they're making a big impact saying that they don't want a PR section in their company. And when you have a really great vision and a really great message to say, social media will pick that up. So not everyone's an Elon Musk and can create that vibe, but so we kind of use that idea when we are creating our branding. So we call ourselves ImageMill like a kind of anti-advertising agency, because I think once people start smelling that they're being sold to, or then they kind of turn off. People still love advertising. They watch it from a more entertainment point of view. But we see a rise of a conscious consumer, and these people are really hard to get to buy your products. They're not interested. They're looking for people who align with their purpose and their values. So as a brand now, they need to, they can't just make a target market, go, okay, we can target at that, that kind of consumer and make a campaign around it. They have to be like that consumer. Patagonia are a great example. We have a really wide range of clients, Patagonia being on the high end. And for them, we really practice debranding, which is basically taking the brand out of it and putting the message forefront. And we kind of call ourselves, we have a kind of technique called branded journalism instead of advertising. It's kind of like creating documentary stories about real things that the brand is doing or supports, and then letting that be the communication channel, as opposed to, this jacket repels water. That's kind of a must. Quality of product is just a must now. So we got to kind of build a story around that. So as I say, with Patagonia, we just then take the whole idea of climate change. For instance, we're working with POW, which is Protect Our Winters, and we just featuring one of their top snowboarders telling their story, and it just naturally aligns with the brand because that's who Patagonia are, through a lot of hard work. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we're working with other big brands like L'Oreal, for instance, who they're really working towards sustainability, but they're such a big company and fragmented that they don't really know how to. So what we do is we take these big sustainable reports from the global side and help translate that into, again, video stories. We just find that video communications and documentaries and that kind of more content is really more powerful. So yeah, again, I talked about greenwashing before. You can't just talk about these issues unless there's big change within the company. And that's where marketing and branding communications has to start at the product level and supply chain levels, and get that right. And then we can tell the stories later.
Yeah, it's not just a superficial change. It has to be really a shift from this linear economy approach, which we have right now, to a more circular approach. And I want to ask to Sergio, how can the creatives and marketers execute power and responsibility by shifting companies into a different paradigm of thinking? Can empathy ever be embraced by advertising and marketing communities? And what about the brands?
That's a loaded question, and I embrace it wholeheartedly, because can creatives and marketers execute power and responsibility by shifting companies in different paradigm of thinking? Absolutely yes. And can empathy ever be embraced by the advertising and marketing communities? Also, absolutely yes. But I think that there is a level of thinking that has to change, right? I think that most recently the advertising community pre-pandemic, it's just really overthinking. They're trying to guess what we're thinking. So much data flowing that everybody thinks they know what I like, thinks they know who I am, but yet they've never taken the chance to actually understand who I am. And it's very simple. In marketing and advertising agencies, when they align, and it's something great that Rick said, is like align with brands, right? Align brands with social initiatives, align impact and purpose and purpose and profit, right? But I think that one of the areas that we talk a lot about, especially in the areas where government meets private sector, meets public sector, meets NGOs and civil society, And when you look at that, there's no way you'll ever have one, thread that connects all these people together, and they're all humans, right? And a lot of the brands we see are looking at generational shifts. Oh my God, what are the Gen Zs versus the millennials, the Gen Xers, the baby boomers? And wait, what about if they're from Africa, or if they're from Latin America, or they're from Asia, or from Europe, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that the part that they're missing, and where the empathy comes in, right? And it's a different level in the paradigm of thinking, is that when you think of impact and purpose, the most basic thing that everyone forgets is that purpose is about love, right? Purpose is about passion, right? And we call that the language of love is a language of purpose, right? It's a language of love. And when you start to look at that, love is ageless, love is colorless, love is boundaryless, love is geographicless, right? So, at what point are we going to start to understand that a brand can just think as simple as, oh, wow, what does somebody care about? I don't need to worry about where they're from, or who they are, or what color they are, right? Or what religion they are. And this is where the brands and everyone, when you think about a different paradigm of thinking, right? It's going back to basics. Be human, because we're all humans and we're absorbing this information. And I'm tired of being marketed as somebody that is read by the cover when nobody's taken even a second to understand what I actually care about. Because it's not, my Instagram is not going to tell you that, right? And I think the greatest opportunity to wrap up on this, the greatest opportunity from a global marketing perspective and a global agency perspective, is to understand that language of love. It's called social impact and purpose. When two people connect, Ian was talking about, the rainforest. When you connect with somebody that is in rainforest and tells you that they've dedicated their lives and they grew up in the rainforest, that is your new best friend for life. It's not about the Ferrari they drove or the party they were at or what they drank or how much money they made, because that's irrelevant. You connected in a soulful way that you will never forget that person's name, where they came from, and their entire story, right? And when I look at that from a marketer and a brand perspective, you are missing out on the greatest opportunity in our lifetime to connect with people, because we are now more empathetic, all of us, because we've just gone through a pandemic. So talk to me in my love language about what I care about.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. We all need to embed much more love in what we are doing, and that's the purpose of all we're doing. So we have only a little bit of time left, but let me ask a final question to Ian. Tell us what to influence the way of thinking of marketers, and how the building of your global movement around protecting and restoring forests will make impact to brands, and how it will change and influence consumer behavior. It's a tough one and maybe not easy to answer in a low amount of time, but make it precise and concise so that everybody can just have a final statement.
Yeah, I think building off of what Sergio was sharing, it essentially comes down to love. Because when I reflect on why I started all this and why I'm still doing all this, it's essentially really simple. It's because I really love nature as I was growing up. And when I came to the realization that we are systematically destroying it, I got sad, because what I was in love with was being destroyed. And that's really been what has been driving me all this time. And I think that's what it comes down to ultimately. How many people can we inspire through that love? How many companies can we fall in love with, I guess, by sharing a certain vision? And how can we work with them? And the way that I see it is not that one nonprofit can be a one size fits all. I think it's really about how can we find the people that we can fall in love with and work with together. And it's really like that for us. And I think the most important thing that we can do is to stay true to ourselves, stay true to what we love, which is forests. We love nature, and we want to protect and restore as much of it as we can. So whoever shares that vision is on our side and we're on their side. And it's really about getting together and growing that. Of course, we will have tremendous impact when that power grows, when these magnets come together and we grow stronger and stronger. It will have tremendous impact on brands and individuals alike. And it's just about staying true to our love for nature, so we can grow that every single day.
Fantastic. So I take this also as your final statement, and I give the word to Rick. for just making a brief final statement, maybe one sentence.
One sentence. So no full stops or full. Okay, so I mean, I always have a kind of little brief guide to how we can make great change, and it's just a 3 simple steps. Buy ethically is a big point on that, and that means not just buying stuff of fair trade, but also, you know, work out where your money is as well. Like divestment is such a big point as well. We can be buying just a fair trade, but meanwhile our money is funding these big fossil fuel industries, etc. Volunteers is the next one. So find your passion. And that's also links into that a whole do what you love. So everyone needs to find that project like Ian has found, you know, protecting the forest. And yeah, so if we can just do that and then find yourself. I think everybody needs some sort of spiritual practice to help get away from all this branding that we're all compounded by and have some silence in their life and get to know what's important. So I think with these 3 simple steps, which love goes through all of it, brands and marketing can follow the same process. I think brands and marketing are people too, you know, and need to sort of personify these values as well. So
I'll definitely give it a sentence. And I think the, you know, riffing a little bit of what Rick said, is just definitely identify what your passion is and just go do it. Start. Don't perfect it. Just do it. Not to be cliche, but if you don't start now, you haven't started. You know, a house is built a brick at a time, and by the time you're done, it could be a building. So I think the point of it is as someone that's been active, you know, over 35 years in entrepreneurial and impact world, and people say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you've gotten to where you got." And I'm like, it all started one step in front of the other. And I think that if we could, all of us here can inspire you to take action, is find that one thing that gets, you know, it gets your juices flowing and get started, because it's not going to be the last thing. It'll be the thing that takes you to the next. And that's the beauty of the journey. The journey is as you're connecting with more, you'll start doing more.
From the purpose-driven innovation ecosystem, we want to co-create a better tomorrow. We want to make the impossible possible, and we want to shift into new paradigms, a new society, a new planetary culture. And everybody can be part of this. So let's all together support realizing Earthshots. Thank you very much for this discussion.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you everybody for sharing such great wisdom.